talk really fast. Anybody that has Randy on their mailing list, text him. Everybody text him right at this moment. Say, come back, straighten us out. It's his fault. He went away. Good morning to everyone who has joined us today, whether here or on the internet. This is a story that got me thinking. I just offer it up for your consideration. A person said that they like to savor the warmth of a hot tub, enjoying the company of others, adjusting to the feel of being bubbled over from all angles. Now, this person has a very good imagination because they said that it struck them that the hot tub is a perfect symbol of the modern trend in religion. I don't quite follow this line of thinking, but they said that the hot tub experience is sensuous, relaxing, floppy, laid back, not at all demanding, but very nice, even to the point of being great fun. They then remarked that many today want Christianity to be like that and labor to make it so. The ultimate step, of course, would be to clear church auditoriums of seats and install hot tubs in their place. Then there would never be any attendance problems. I was just going for lazy boy chairs. But if there were no more to our Christianity than hot tubs and a self-absorbed hedonism of relaxation and happy feelings, wouldn't we fall short of the biblical life that God calls us to? If we are just a social club gathering to make ourselves feel good, wouldn't we be dodging the tough tasks and not wanting to take unpopular stances? Shouldn't forming relationships that could be demanding on our time and talents and resources not be on our list of things to do? The one who molds us to participate in this world according to the potter's plan, the one Jesus trained us for, would he or she be disappointed with this kind of church, as nice and enticing as it would be to getting new people to fill our pews? So how are we doing? What are our priorities? Do we allow the potter to mold our lives to service or to enjoy? Or maybe some of both. Let's sing. us to, when we get around to the sharing of the elements, just eat and I'll reflect, and yes, we just won't work very hard at this. A potter's work is usually not exciting or glamorous. Sure, there are some unique creations to be made, but usually it's thousands of plates and cups and bowls and storage vessels and the like. The work of the potter is about making dirt functional and usable to improve everyday life, just add a special touch. So we come to this table with simple bread and some fruit of the vine. We come to this ordinary meal, but experience the extraordinary love and purpose that God has for us. So come and find God at this everyday and unremarkable table, just as God finds the incredible within you as well. Our tradition says that at the Last Supper, Jesus, sharing the bread and wine, invited his disciples to share his journey. Today, through the bread and the fruit of the vine, we renew our journey with Jesus and his disciples. Through the bread and the fruit of the vine, we renew our unity with one another and with all those who have gone before us in this place. Through the bread and the fruit of the vine, we renew our journey with Jesus and his disciples.
Next slide.
Through the bread and the fruit of the vine, right?
We renew our communion with the earth and our indulgences with the bones and muscles of the world.
We are reminded again of the tradition that surrounds this story. Long ago, on the night of his arrest, Jesus broke bread and gave thanks and said, "This bread is broken as my body will be." And then he handed it to his friends and invited them to eat. "Remember all that I have been for you." And long ago, on that same night, Jesus poured a cup of wine and offered thanks for it and gave it to his friends. And he said, "This wine is poured out as my life will be. Remember me and give thanks for all I have given." So God is the heart of life.
And we are the heartbeat.
May our hearts be filled with thanks and praise and songs of joy.
We rejoice in the miracle of life and delight in our participation.
Creating God, source of life, we offer our thanks. The smell of the earth after rain, the surprise of ducks in flight, the taste of peach and plum and nectarine, for all gifts simple, profound, in country and city, on the farm or in the backyard and on the lake.
We give thanks.
We who hold all such good things in trust join with others in declaring,
Holy, 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 heaven and earth are holy and good. Holy is peace, holy is truth, holy is love.
In this season of transition, as the leaves begin their subtle change of color and our hearts cling to the warmth as the days shorten, once again we are reminded that new possibilities can rise from our failures or disappointments or what has come to an end. We give thanks for all the influences in our lives that have helped us to see beyond the present, that teach us to combine labor and rest, that bring us the cycles of time and season that sustain us when we are in need.
God loves in us. God cares through us. God laughs in us. God cries in us as nowhere else.
Especially we give thanks for Jesus of Nazareth, gatherer of folk, teller of stories, breaker of bread, pourer of wine, weaver of lives. In his life, wisdom, stories, and social vision, we recall the words he spoke to call forth in us love, care, and respect for one another.
And we believe the same Spirit of God that came to visibility in Jesus yearns for visible expression in us.
And so now we take this bread and this fruit of the vine. May they be a constant presence of the Spirit of life and love, healing, renewing, and making us whole.
Together we unite our past. Together we discern our present. Together we shape our future.
From the grain and other good things and the fruit of the vine, we now share a meal together to refresh us personally and sustain our mission as followers of Christ. So enjoy these gifts from the earth, the work of human hands, while we share a lighthearted pondering on the word today. This is a story, a myth, from long ago. Once upon a time, there was a forest in Romania. In it, a man called Alexander lived, who people called Alex for short. Alexander was a choker burner. He used to collect twigs and thin branches from the trees, and he made a little fire and burned the sticks very slowly so that they could turn into black strips called charcoal. People use charcoal for a lot of things. They draw with it, make fires with it, use it for medicine, and make shoe polish with it. And so you see what a useful job Alexander had. So Alexander looked after his little fires by himself all day, and he learned to be very patient, because if he was impatient, his charcoal would turn into ashes. In a quiet job like that, the birds and the animals get used to the person who is working and take no notice. Alexander saw baby squirrels playing and mother foxes taking their cubs to roll in the sun, and all kinds of things that we never see. It made him think how quiet and patient God must be. Hers is in an enormous forest, he thought to himself, and it was full of living things, plants and animals and insects and birds, and they all lead busy lives. Not one of them is lazy, and yet few people even know they're there. There must be hundreds of them there. They're too shy even for me to see, and yet God knows all about them and what they do all day. He never frightens them, however, near as he is, because he is so still. While Alexander was quietly living in the forest and burning his charcoal and thinking about God and watching the birds and animals, there were great goings-on in the town. And this is what was happening. At first, there had been very few Christians in town, but as time went on, there were more and more. At last, the priest said they really ought to have a bishop of their own instead of belonging to a bishop called Gregory, who lived a long ways off and scarcely had time for them. So it was decided that Bishop Gregory would come and that everybody would say which priest that they wanted as their new bishop. Well, some wanted this priest and some wanted that priest, and to know all that they wanted, though, at last they collected 7 priests who wanted to be the bishop. And now they wrote and told Gregory that they wanted him to come and choose. The town hall was all ready with a throne at the end for this Bishop Gregory and chairs and seats for all the people. When everyone had settled, the first man who wanted to be the bishop came in. He was tall and thin with a big nose and had a very grand expression. He looked at the crowds of people as if they were too common for words. The people who wanted him to be the bishop clapped for him and cheered as he went and stood before Gregory. "Do you think you would be a good bishop?" he asked him. "I'm sure I would," said the man. "I think you are too proud," said Gregory. "Next, please." The second man had silk clothes and a jeweled crucifix and a rosary made of real rubies in his hand. "Would you keep all those lovely things for yourself if you were made bishop?" asked Gregory. "Of course I should," and he held them a little tighter. "They are my own property," said the man. "You are too covetous, I think," said Gregory. "Next, please." The third man had the most brightly colored clothes and smiling face and beautifully curly hair. He winked at all the people, and the ladies clapped their hands because he was so handsome. "Do you want people to go on thinking that you are handsome and clever when you are the bishop?" "But of course," said the man, and he looked quickly to the people to see if they were listening. Even a bishop had to have his bit of fun. "I think that you are too fond of pretty ladies," said Gregory. "Next, please." The fourth man had black hair and a frowning face. He stared at the people angrily and then went and stood before Gregory. The people who wanted him clapped, but he shook his head at them, and they stopped. If you were the bishop, would you be strict with the people and punish them severely if they broke the rules? Asked Gregory. I would, said the man. They are a lazy, sinful lot, but I'm not put up with their nonsense. You get angry too easily, said Gregory. Next, please. The fifth man was very fat indeed, but he looked kindly at the people, and he waved his hand at the ones who wanted him. As he stood in front of Gregory, he pulled a buttered bun out of his pocket and began to eat it. Excuse me, he said, couldn't you have waited until choosing your bun until after the interview? Asked Gregory. Not me, said the man. I wouldn't miss a meal for anyone on earth. It keeps a man good-tempered to be fat. I think you are too greedy, said Gregory. Next, please. The sixth man was thin and mean-looking. He did not look happy. He stared at all the priests who had already seen Gregory. Well, said Gregory, what's the matter? Aren't you happy? Don't you want to be bishop after all? No good my wanting it, said the man. I don't have good looks like that man, not riches like that man, or a nice house that had one or a kind of family like that one. I never get these things other people have. You are too envious to be happy, said Gregory. Next, please. But no one came. Next, please, he said again, looking around. I thought you said there were 7 people who wanted to be the bishop, he whispered to the mayor, and all the people laughed. And then the door banged open, and in a mean, untidy man with ruffled hair and his shoes undone. He was yawning and rubbing his eyes. Sorry, my lord, he said to Gregory. As I was late last night, I thought that I'd have a nap while I was waiting, so I didn't hear your call. Do you always have naps when you can? Asked Gregory. Always, my lord, said the man solemnly. A man can't have too much sleep, I always say. I think you're too lazy, said Gregory. All the people rustled and coughed and sat up and shuffled their feet, and they stared at Gregory and waited for him to say which of the 7 priests would be the bishop. Well, said Gregory, and he looked around at all the people, I'm sorry, but I don't think any of them would do for bishop. The people stared amongst themselves, and then someone shouted, but we must have one of them. There isn't anyone else. No, said Gregory. They may not be bad as ordinary people go, but they would not make a good bishop. We couldn't have a bishop that was greedy, lazy, choosy, or any of the other deadly sins. You're too choosy, said the people. You can't have a perfect man. No, said Gregory, but he ought to try to be perfect, and these men don't. All the people stared, arguing again, and in the noise Gregory said to God, please, God, if you really want a bishop here, will you choose one yourself? It's very difficult for me with all these 7 men and all the people. Just then, someone shouted, you better get Alexander, the charcoal burner, if you can't think of anybody better. All the people laughed, because they couldn't imagine having a sooty, ragged Alexander for a bishop. But Gregory knew that this was God's answer to his prayer, so he held up his hand for the people to stop laughing, and he said, who is this Alexander? I was only joking, said the man who had shouted. He's a charcoal burner and lives in the forest. Will someone go and get him, said Gregory. The people stared. What was he thinking? Did he mean to see if Alexander would do? Yes, he did. So Alexander was brought along, freshly washed the black marks off his face and hands, and he went to Gregory and he knelt and kissed his ring. Then he stood up and waited to see why the bishop had sent for him. Alexander said to Gregory, do you think you would be a good bishop? Me, my lord? No, I have no learning. I don't know anything at all. Would you like a rosary made of rubies? Why, no, thank you. I have a nice wooden one that will last me a lifetime. Do you like parties and pretty ladies? I don't know why, said Alexander. I've never been asked to a party myself. But a bit of fun now and then, it's good for everybody. He wondered why Gregory was asking him all these questions in front of the townspeople. Do you think the townspeople are a lazy, sinful lot? Oh no, please don't think that. There's good in everyone, if you look for it. Alexander had quite forgotten how mean the people were about paying for their charcoal. Have you had your tea yet? Asked Gregory. I don't have it as a rule, said Alexander, only when it's raining and I have to burn my charcoal. I eat when I'm hungry, and that does me nicely. Are you happy? Asked Gregory. Have you everything you want? I'm very happy, he replied. I love my work. I have enough to eat. I have my own little house, and God's good to me. Would you change your work for something quite different, said Gregory? If God wished it? He replied, I would. Gregory stood up and walked down the steps from his throne and put his arm around Alexander's shoulders. Here is your new bishop, he said to the people. At first they sat there with their mouths open, certain that it wasn't true. Surely the bishop was playing a joke on them. Then as they began to think about it, they saw Alexander was just the opposite of all these other 7 men, and they poked fun at him. Looking at him now, though, they loved him. So Alexander the charcoal burner became their bishop, and he was one for years and years, happily doing God's work. Our reading today is one from the major prophet Jeremiah, or the weeping prophet as he came to be known. In the late 7th or early 6th centuries BC, Jeremiah reluctantly, like Alexander, accepted his call to prophethood, embarking on a tumultuous, over 5-decade-long ministry. His life was marked by opposition, imprisonment, and personal struggles. Central to his message were prophecies of impending divine judgment, forewarning of the nation's idolatry, social injustices, and moral decay. He prophesied the siege of Jerusalem and the Babylonian exile as consequences for their disobedience. So let us now listen as if his message were meant for us.
Good morning, everyone. Good morning. God told Jeremiah, up on your feet, go to the potter's house. When you get there, I'll tell you what I have to say. So I went to the potter's house, and sure enough, the potter was there working away at his wheel. Whatever the potter was working on turned out badly, as sometimes happens when you are working with clay, the potter would simply start over and use the same clay to make another pot. Then God's message came to me. Can't I do just as this potter does, people of Israel? This is God's decree. Watch this potter. In the same way that this potter works his clay, I work on you, people of Israel. At any moment, I may decide to pull up a people or a country by the roots and get rid of them. But if they repent of their wicked lives, I will think twice and start over with them. At another time, I might decide to plant a people or country, but if they don't cooperate and won't listen to me, I will think again and give up on the plans I had for them. So tell the people of Judah and citizens of Jerusalem my message. Danger! I'm shaping doom against you, laying plans against you. Turn back from your doomed way of life, straighten out your lives. Straightforward words for the Israelites. May they hold meaning for us today as we struggle to live faithfully in difficult times.
A lot of today's reflection is about questions. Changing your line of work. There is a biblical precedent for it, of course. Do you remember anybody who changed their vocation in the Old Testament? What about David? Right? David went from shepherd to a king. Jonah, Satan, aka the devil, the source of evil. The Bible hints that Satan was originally a good angel named Lucifer, who turned evil because he wanted to make himself God. Moses went from a herdsman to a liberator. In the New Testament, we have, of course, Peter, James, John, Andrew, Matthew, James, Jesus' brother, Paul, women like Lydia, Susanna, Mary, Phoebe, Priscilla, All names I'm sure we're all familiar with. They all heard God's call, or they felt the Spirit guiding them, or Jesus just expecting them to follow him now with no questions asked. It took great courage, excuse me. You always remember those two little words, fear not, to listen for that still small voice encouraging them to turn around and do something different. If you could have had another profession, another occupation, another path to take, what would it have been? Have you ever wished that you could go back and start over? Why? If you were content with what you did, would you have liked to change anything? Felt restless? Have you ever wondered if there was something more to life? Perhaps the career or the vocation that you chose wasn't what you thought it would be. It lacked that satisfaction component. Maybe you ended up sitting behind a desk and you thought you were going to be out in the field. Or all those courses that you took, all that knowledge that you acquired, they weren't even used, and it all seemed like a big waste. Did you listen to your heart? Or did your head take over? Did you feel as if someone else was trying to control you, and you ended up doing something that was really the hope and the dream, let's say, of your parents and not yours? Do you remember the movie The Proposal? Ryan Reynolds, Sandra Bullock? Remember that one? His father wanted him to take over the family businesses, but he wanted to be a book editor. And he stuck to it, listened to his heart. Do you know of anyone who was disowned by their family for not following in their family's tradition, living according to their family's dictates or views? Francis of Assisi comes to mind. Anyone with a different sexual orientation? Would God disown us if we turned away from our faith and behaved inappropriately? Sometimes we seem to lead an ordinary life. We feed our families, we put roofs over their heads, save enough money for retirement, but we perhaps still feel as if we're missing something. Or you didn't go to bed at the end of the day, looking forward to the challenges of the next one. There was no sense of accomplishment, that you have achieved something on your own, that it was really only because you were someone else's child that got you there, where you are. Think of Jesus. He was labeled the son of Mary and Joseph of Nazareth, just the son of Mary and Joseph. There are a number of very wealthy people who are not leaving their children their wealth, so that this doesn't happen, to encourage them to achieve their own successes and reputations. Bravo to them. Or did you ever have a dream, but you didn't follow through with it because it seemed like too much work? You were looking at a 4-year program, but then there would be all that extra tuition and all those payments once you were finished, so you stuck with the 2-year program that got you out into the job market more quickly. But a few years later, you realized that your options were limited. And it wasn't that you didn't know how to do the things you wanted to do, it was just that you didn't have the necessary piece of paper. And so you go through life feeling unfulfilled or frustrated. Or were you filled with curiosity, always questioning, but you never got the chance to see things, to explore things, to kill it, to get the answers that you wanted? Did you ever feel trapped inside a life of predictability, each day, each week, each month, each year being the same, no new stimulation? As I mentioned, St. Francis lived a high-spirited life, typical of a wealthy young man, even fighting as a soldier. But after he came back from the wars, he returned to his carefree life. And then he got ill, and he began to sort of rethink. And he lost his taste for his worldly life. And he finally left all that behind. He left his family behind, and he was rejected by his family. And he was awakened to God's call for him. Thomas Becket, Chancellor of England, was obscenely wealthy. His wardrobe was larger and more expensive than the king's. He even had his own private army. In spite of his wealth, he was cold-hearted and never gave anything to the poor. But all that changed again when Becket was made the Archbishop of Canterbury. And he had to rethink. And he gave away all his possessions, and he welcomed the poor at his table. And he became the champion of the independence of the church, for which he finally was murdered. Some lesser-known people: Walt Disney, newspaper editor who was fired because he lacked imagination and had no good ideas. Ellen DeGeneres was a paralegal and an oyster shutter. Harrison Ford was a carpenter. Actually, he'd given up acting for the financial stability of his carpentry work until Star Wars. Andrea Bocelli was a lawyer, defense attorney until he left his job to sing full-time. Whoopi Goldberg put makeup on dead people. Why change jobs? Perhaps to reduce stress, learn something new, follow a passion, a new passion even, change pace. We have a desire now to help others, change their lives. We know that justice needs to be done. Because of our faith choices, we're expected to do more than what just pleases us. Being a humanitarian worker is a lifestyle, a calling, not just a job. You have this idea of interest versus a passion. And that can always not be a feel-good business. But inside there's this gnawing feeling, a pull to do more, to have an impact, to make a difference, to relieve suffering. Serving others might help us find out what direction we want our lives to take. Do we let others determine what we're going to do? Do we make our decisions about how we're going to live ethically? What do we base them on? Just some questions. After I was thinking about it, my mind just turned 360 around, and I was thinking about how some of us labor to make ourselves take a rest. But even then, it seems to be labor and finding something else to fill our time with that isn't connected with our work. I think it was Australia this week whose government is trying to promote a healthy work-life balance. The work at home scheme that was created by COVID saw employers encroaching on their employees' personal time and more. So in response to this, the government has enacted a right to disconnect to protect the mental well-being of the workers across Australia. It will still be hard, though, I think, for both sides to respect this new arrangement. It's so easy to just want to slip in and turn on the computer for a few minutes. And it might be surprising that all these questions do have to do with our faith life. How we labor, who we labor for, taking care of ourselves is important to do in the name of the one who created us. I want to share some words from a Christian many years ago. His name was Irenaeus from the 2nd century. Writes in a very poetic way. From God's hands. It is not you who shape God, it is God that shapes you. If then you are the work of God, await the hand of the artist who does all things in due season. Offer the potter your heart, soft and tractable, and keep the form in which the artist has fashioned you. Let your clay be moist. Let you grow hard and lose the imprint of the potter's fingers. It might be nice. It might be nice if you turn to page 578 of the Red Hymn Book. As a fire is meant for burning. 578. Let us begin the process of letting go of things and power and letting God into our lives instead, by gathering up what we have left to share. We look for a gentler humanity, a kinder world. With our money and with our hearts, with our minds and with every good intention, let this be our prayer and our deed. Amen. What's happening? Just a few things. hope to start a Bible study on September the 10th, which will be 2 weeks from now. We'll see how it goes. There's going to be a board executive meeting after the service on Sunday, September the 15th. And that's for the chair and the secretary and the treasurer and the heads of the various committees. So that's the head of like finance, building, worship, pastoral care, ministry and personnel. So, but that's for another 2 weeks away. Angela is busy. Angela wants us all to be healthy.
Yes, one of my passions, this sermon hit me in the heart today, is that I believe we can be physically active at any age of our life and we can improve our fitness. So I am offering a seniors exercise class starting September 17th, Tuesdays and Thursdays mornings, 9:30 to 10:30. No, sorry, 10:30 to 11:30. Yes, because I'm not a morning person, so 10:30 start. There is a questionnaire that I need anyone who is interested in taking this class to fill out. It's called the Participation Activity Readiness Questionnaire. So if you have severe medical conditions, I need you to get signed off by a doc so that my scope of practice is covered. It is for gentle mobility, flexibility, and range of motion. Someone has said it's chair yoga. It is not a chair yoga course, but I will offer parts of chair yoga during different sessions. So we're concentrating on balance, flexibility, mobility, and it's for 65 plus, but I am not checking for ID. So if anyone is interested, I will leave these on the back bench. And you can drop them off at the town hall or the arena rec office.
Angela, it might be a little hard to get it signed off by a doctor these days.
I think we have a nurse practitioner in town that's going to be helping us.
Okay.
So we've got that covered.
That's great. Just a little notice from Jean Bott to say that it's time to pay for the Broadview. And I don't know how much it is.
$50, I believe.
What?
$50?
No.
Oh,
No.
okay. Forget it.
Forget it, yeah. No. I have a good news story here. In Europe, small gardens are appearing on top of bus shelter roofs to help support the struggling insects and pollinators. They have been dubbed the buzz stops. ZZ. In England, 97% of their wildflower meadows have gone since the 1930s. 97%. And as someone was saying, as we lose our wildflower meadows, we lose our pollinators. And even more important is the warning, if the bees go, they're taking us with them. So, just something that, I don't know, think of it. It's a good news story. What can you do? Okay, so that was Randy. That was Randy. So his question for us today, and I'm thinking, did I know these answers? Good morning to everyone, he says. Three-part question this week. What ruler of another nation traveled to hear the wisdom of Solomon? A lady? The Queen? Dorothy? Yell it out. Yes, the Queen of Sheba. Yes. Yes. And then he has, in B, he said, who did that ruler marry? But he has the answer Solomon, so I'm not quite certain. She didn't marry Solomon, did she? So I don't know. And then, did they have a child? And if so, what was the child's name? And I don't know this one at all. You will not know it. Sorry, you need to be so confident about something. But unless you knew Menelik, we all failed that course. Okay, so I will tell him how we did, or how we didn't do. Go home and read the story of Solomon and Sheba. Yeah. Is there anything else we need to share before this thing goes off again? Good? Okay. Oh. Then let us pray. Creator God, when you formed us lovingly out of the dust of the earth, you breathed into us the breath of life, and you gave us work and purpose for living. You placed Adam in the Garden of Eden to till and keep it. Through our work, you made us co-workers with you, shaping the world in which we live. You gave dignity to our labor by sending your Son to labor with us. By our labor, we enrich your world. We enjoy the fruits of creation. We find direction and purpose. Our families are made secure. For providing varieties of work and for blessing us by our labor, we give thanks, God. For those who plow and tend the fields, for machinists and sheep workers, for those who work with their hands and those who move the earth, we give you thanks, God. For those who tend the sick and those who seek new cures, for doctors and nurses, for scientists and technicians, for those who keep notes and those who transcribe, we give you thanks, God. For those who think and those who create, for inventors and explorers, for artists and musicians, for those who write books and those who entertain, we give you thanks, God. For those who work in offices and those who work in warehouses, for secretaries and receptionists, for stockers and bookkeepers, for those who market products and for those who move them, we give you thanks. For those who inspire our minds and those who motivate us, for teachers and preachers, for public servants and religious servants, and we especially keep in our prayers Pam, serving in Madagascar. For those who help the poor and those who work with our children, we give you thanks, God. For those who labor, whose labor is tidiness and cleanliness, for custodians and sanitary workers, for dry cleaners and house cleaning staff, for those who produce cleaning products, we give you thanks. For those who sail the waves and those who fly the skies, for captains and attendants, for astronauts and deep sea divers, for those who chart and those who navigate, we give you thanks, God. You bless us all with skills and gifts for labor. You provide us with opportunities to use them for the benefit of others as well as ourselves. Guard and protect those who labor all over the world. Bless the work of our hands, God. Look kindly upon the unemployed and the disabled who desperately want the dignity of work. Give health to the sick, hope to the bereaved. Keep us from laboring only for greed. Make us loving and responsible in all we do. Creator God, you are the source of all wisdom and purpose. You are the blessing of those who labor. Be with us in our labor to guide and govern our world. Give all men and women work that enhances human dignity and binds us one to another. Give us pride in our work, a fair return for our labor, and joy in knowing that our work finds its source in you as the one who made us all uniquely for your purposes. Amen. Let us sing.
Amen.
not too young or too old. We are not too rich or too needy to bring good news to the impoverished, to give a hand to the brokenhearted, and to live out freedom and pardon through the gifts that we have been given. So remember to pack peace in your toolbox, hope in your carry-all, love in your giving bag, and may integrity, honesty, and joy be your designer wear of choice. Never be frightened, for we are never alone. The God in whose image we were made will walk with us and guide us today, tomorrow, and every day, molding us and remolding us into whatever form serves God's purposes at that moment in time. I'm pressing the wrong button. I need a rest from my neighbors. What? Why are you looking at me like that?
We don't want to do 216, do we?
Yeah. Yeah, so when we practice.
Yeah, but there's, you haven't got the
What?
words up there, right? Is that what's
Yeah,
up
those
there?
are the words.
All right.
She was trying, no, see what she's doing to me? Is that a bully? Betty, go with me, will ya? Okay.
It's gentle persuasion.
Yeah, okay, gentle persuasion, she says. Okay.
I don't think
No, I don't think it's that one either.
No, I don't like it.
Okay, Ian, play. Play for us, Ian.
What number is it?
216. Yeah? I guess you were right, but I guess we're not gonna do that one because those are the words up there. Hey, what?
Didn't I?
What?
Didn't I win?
Yeah.
Right.
May God shelter your wings. 214? 214. Oh, see, now she's singing. Better there. There we Oh, I might not come back till Wednesday, okay? I thought this was good. Labor Day is just a polite way of saying sorry, summer is officially over. Sort of sad. And happy Labor Day, let's not think of it as summer's exit, but as autumn's warm-up hat.